Hello, good morning or good afternoon. The social issue that we chose to talk about is domestic violence. So, the first thing that we should do is define domestic violence. So, domestic violence is any pattern of abusive behavior used by one person to gain or maintain power and control over another person in a close relationship, such as a spouse, partner, or family member. So, this is one of the more controversial issues surrounding the Catholic Church because, being a religion that does not permit divorce, the church is often put under great scrutiny by the public for what if situations that can occur within a marriage that cannot be dissolved. And domestic violence between husband and wife is one of those what if situations. Now, let's explore what different church documents have to say about domestic violence. So, the Code of Canon Law recognizes the existence and severity of domestic violence and, to help address it, provides a framework for protection, intervention, and possible separation, though it attempts to do these things only from a sacramental perspective, not as a criminal code would. This means that where criminal laws may prioritize persecuting and eventually jailing the abuser, the canon law's priority might be to protect the one being abused and also to reform the abuser and also protect the sanctity of marriage as a sacrament that's supposed to symbolize the love God has for his church. The second document will be discussed by my groupmate.
Catechism of the Catholic Church under Pope John Paul II in 1992, Universal Doctrinal Document. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, promulgated by Pope John Paul II, serves as a universal doctrinal guide offering clarity on issues related to faith, morality, and human dignity to the Catholics itself. The Church's stance on domestic violence, while not always specifically detailed in this document, can be inferred through its teachings on the dignity of human person, sanctity of marriage, and the call for mutual respect and love within the family. While not addressing domestic violence in explicit terms, it upholds principles that are inherently anti-violent, advocates for human dignity, mutual respect, and the sanctity of marriage, all of which are violated by any form of domestic abuse or violence. The Church's teachings in this document call for a commitment to protect the vulnerable, promote peace and justice in the family, and support victims in their healing process. It is essential for basically the Church encourages leaders and society to continue working toward preventing and addressing domestic violence, basically any kind of violence that is present in this world, and offer those victims care, support, and justice that they deserve. When I Call for Help by USCCB in 2002 Pastoral Letter. When I Call for Help letter issued by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops serves as an important declaration regarding domestic violence, addressing an issue from a faith-based perspective and emphasizing the need for both the church and society to take responsibility in combating this harmful societal issue. Basically, this pastoral letter provides an insightful and comprehensive framework for understanding domestic violence, its effects, not just an social issue, but as a moral and spiritual crisis that requires intervention and healing at every level. This letter basically is a call to action urging church and its members to take a stance against domestic violence. It emphasizes the need for compassionate care, education, and support for all the victims of domestic violence. The letter is a reminder that domestic violence is not only a societal responsibility, but also a moral and spiritual imperative for those who seek to live in alignment with the principles of justice, respect, and love as taught by the Church. The Bishop's collective voice resonates with the urgency of ending the cycle of abuse once and for all and promoting healing in families, communities, and society as a whole.
So, moving on towards the apostolic letter in the form of a motu proprio of the Supreme Pontiff Francis on the protection of minors and vulnerable persons. This document discusses establishing legal norms and safeguarding measures within Vatican City to protect minors and vulnerable adults from all forms of abuse, especially sexual abuse. So this is an apostolic letter issued by the late Pope Francis by on 2019. It highlights the protection of minors and vulnerable adults from all form of abuse, especially sexually abuse, as stated. Although this letter only concerns within the law of the Vatican City, this is enough evidence to present where the church's stance is regarding individuals experiencing abuse. It reaffirms the Church's moral and legal obligation to safeguard children and vulnerable adults. Its statement proposes a number of institutional changes for the Roman Curia and Vatican City state. So, what are these changes? Mandatory reporting of abuse, enlarged Vatican court jurisdiction, victim support programs, staff training requirements, stricter personnel screening are important measures, and offers a legal framework for dealing with abuse, guaranteeing victims justice. So, after going through these documents, it's evident that abuse of any kind, whether it affects the body, mind, or spirit, is considered a serious violation of human value by the Church. We'll be moving on towards the conclusion of this presentation.
In conclusion, according to the Church's official documents, the Catholic Church actively opposes and works against domestic violence through a combination of pastoral care, teaching, advocacy, and collaboration with civil authorities. While it doesn't act as a legal or enforcement body outside of the Church itself, the Church aims to protect victims, hold abusers accountable, and promote healing and justice within its communities. From the Church documents presented, it can be seen how, while seemingly contradictory to how strict the Church upholds marriages due to its essence of being a sacred covenant that man cannot willfully separate, it must be noted that in cases of domestic violence, it is the abuse that violates the dignity and well being of those involved. Therefore, the separation of the spouses no longer becomes a violation. It even becomes a necessity. The Church has taken steps to address this issue from both within the Church and those of its community, as seen from the Church documents presented, such as Canon 1153 of the Code of Canon Law, expressly allowing separation to retain the concerned individual's well being and dignity. The CCC similarly expresses the sentiment that marriage is a reflection of God's love towards the Church, to which it is unable to be so in relationships with domestic violence. USCCB's When I Call for Help stresses that the role of abuse is what breaks up the marriage, not the separation itself. And lastly, Motu Proprio, calling for the protection of vulnerable people, encouraging the church to provide pastoral care. So, while marriage is emphasized by the church as indissoluble, the dignity and well being of those involved remains the top priority that opens the pathway to separation. So, that is all for our research about what the church has to say through church documents in regards to domestic violence. So, here is our references, and thank you.